executive order to beautify the Capitol. And crews in Tulsa, Oklahoma have discovered 42 previously unknown graves in the 1921 race massacre investigation. Forensic experts updating the investigation found a bullet in one set of remains, marking the 7th such discovery. KBIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year and their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
Is this the Tiger?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It took 18 innings and 6 hours and 39 minutes, but the Dodgers got it done. And yes, I was up at 11:50 last night when Freddie Freeman provided the dramatic finish. Freeman led off the 18th inning with a solo home run that cleared the center field wall and gave the Dodgers a historic 6-5 win over Toronto in Game 3 of the World Series. The game tied the record for longest World Series game ever played. Freeman hit a walk-off grand slam in Game 1 of last year's World Series against the Yankees. The Dodgers take a 2-1 lead in the best-of-7. Game 4 is tonight at Dodger Stadium at 5 o'clock. Shohei Ohtani, if he has any energy left, is scheduled to be the Dodgers starting pitcher. Ohtani set 2 World Series records last night, reaching base 9 times and delivering 4 extra base hits, including 2 home runs. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
You ready?
You're invited to the KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair on Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Catch at Audubon Middle School in Lamert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Join us for a day of health, healing, and community connection. There will be health screenings, immunizations, wellness information, a Catch Charter School recruitment fair, plus music and healthy snacks. And it's all free at the KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair, Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Audubon Middle School in Lamert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Come out and bring the entire family. And if you have not yet checked out our KBLA Health and Wellness Hub, you should at KBLA1580.com. KBLA Talk 1580 thanks Catch Charter School, Prudential, Eastside, Cedar Sinai, and St. John's Community Health. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that a healthy community is a thriving community.
That's right, baby.
Super. My praying mama proud of a little black boy. We headline a club on the sneakers and back doors. Walk through the kitchen, got plenty ink on our passports. And not to mention our queens ain't pushing no rap for us. What you think I rap for? I'm building my legacy. Text from my heroes, hate legacy. Chase bread, my pockets got legacy. Foreign land with my brother, that's pedigree. Cause we
work hard, play hard. We work for the days off. Make time to take off. Circle right back for the payoff. Oh, work hard, play hard. We work. Now we paid up. Make time to lay up. Ain't worried about what anybody says. It's okay. It's okay. Let's go play. It's okay. It's okay.
KBLA Talk 1580. Congratulations going out to D Smoke on his new album. That one just dropped, and it's full of flows, chock full of flows, right, Miles? Yeah, it's full of flows. Definitely one to check out. Inglewood showing up and doing their thing. So it's Talking Point Tuesday, and this is when we typically try to debunk the things that are said over and over again, or at least understand why we say them. And I love it when we have, I have a Republican colleague that's willing to get on the mic and chop it up with me, agree, disagree, or agree to disagree. And one such fellow is joining me this morning. He's a senior fellow, actually, at the Commonwealth Foundation, senior fellow founding forward and radio host on his own right, Newsradio KDKA, Lenny McAllister. Welcome.
Good morning, ma'am. It's good to hear your voice. How have you been?
I've been blessed. How about yourself?
Likewise indeed.
So, I mean, you must be, we haven't talked since before this election. And by this election, I'm talking about last November.
2024.
Right.
Yes.
When we have definitely not talked since the inauguration. So I guess what you must be feeling good right now. The Republicans have the House, the Senate, the White House, the Supreme Court.
And no moral authority or apparent compass for ethics. So, I mean, I guess it's going to be our first point of contention. Electoral victories are not American victories, and this is something that I have been preaching as a proud black Republican and proud black Christian conservative for years, that, we have to define winning with something that's encompassed with our spiritual beliefs and in congruency with our American values, the best of our American values, and not the worst of our American history. And we need to do it in a way that applies contemporarily. That is something that I would say has not been transpiring over the course of 2025. I would say that, there's one half of the country that has been pushing back against, but doesn't quite have its way in regards to how to push back against. And we have, people that are in power that have attacked everything from diversity and inclusion, while having a Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense, I should say, that went from being a part-time talk show host like I am to running the largest and most powerful military in the world, and thinks that he earned it, all the way to what we're seeing in the cities, including Los Angeles and Chicago and the like, where we see the weaponization of fear and what we call law and order, which, as I told Vice President Pence during the racial uprisings after George Floyd in 2020, people want law and order, but people want constitutional law and order. They want to make sure that their civil rights, whether it's under the Bill of Rights or throughout the Constitution, are protected. And when they do not see that there's constitutional law and order, there's going to be, at the very least, unrest. And at the highest point, there's going to be division amongst our country. And I've been witnessing that for quite some time. I've seen it all throughout 2025, and it's something that both grieves my heart, but also puts a fire in my belly.
Well, certainly, it's refreshing to hear that. In a sense, I don't know that it's a point of contention. It was part of my struggle right now, and I am a person that listens to all voices, even though I'm a progressive. Is that people that say that they're conservative and Christian are signing off on things to me that don't seem in alignment with Christian principles, and I think, that point about ethical victories versus electoral victories is one that I have not heard many conservatives making of late.
You'd be correct on that. I mean, I'm a lifelong Catholic too, and I would dare say that the priests that committed crimes against my fellow altar boys at the parish that I was at, I was not a victim, but I know people that were. I would venture to say that I don't care how much they were ordained as Catholic priests, they were not, exemplifying the Catholic tradition. And I would obviously say that they weren't acting within the will of God when they did what they did. And I think that when you look at what's going on with Christian conservatives, that there is a lot that wear the label but don't walk that walk. They're neither Christian nor conservative. I mean, we know the impact that tariffs are having on this country. Californian Ronald Reagan was somebody that was anti-tariff his whole career, even before he became president of the United States. And we're seeing portions of the Republican Party now embrace tariffs because they've been told to do so. Just the same, an administration that's claiming to bring God and Christianity back into the fold has led over the last 10 years, both in 45 and in 47, and during the campaign trails. They've led with some of the most divisive and hateful rhetoric. I mean, again, even at the Charlie Kirk Memorial Service, we had the President of the United States say, the widow says, love your enemies. She forgives the person that shot her husband. I hate my enemies. He has referred to half the country as the enemy within. This is not Christian, nor is it conservative. I mean, it talks it contravenes the message of Reagan, both on tariffs, but also on the unity of what being an American was supposed to be. Now, we can talk about Reagan policies and inner city policies, how it impacted L.A. We could talk about him as governor of California, which was a completely different narrative and biography there. So I'm not trying to extol nor explain or justify everything that Ronald Reagan did. But what I am saying is, when you start looking at some of the key principal values of what a Christian conservative, the compassionate conservative that George W. Bush talked about in 2000, that label still exists, but the attitude in walk, in faith, and in action is certainly been missing from a lot of within a lot of conservative and Republican circles these days, unfortunately.
So a Reagan Republican now, or even a Bush Republican, seems to be, they would be way too liberal, allegedly, for today's MAGA Republican Party. I don't see, even the most supposedly conservative policies of a Reagan or a Bush. I don't see them flying in today's Republican Party. So where does that leave you, Lenny McAllister?
It leaves me as a child of God. That is both it leaves me, and I know that sounds funny, Dominique, but hear me out.
Okay.
But part of it is, as a man of faith, I have to believe that God has a plan for all of this. And as a student of history, I'm a history major from my alma mater down in North Carolina, that I have to also remember how history changes. I mean, the party of the Klan, the party of Jim Crow, went from dividing people and keeping black people from voting for 100 years, ending that in the late 60s, early 70s, and within 30 years had two black men run for the presidency within their party. One person became the second place winner in 1988, and then 20 years later, there was the first African-American president elected from that party with a Muslim name that lived part of his life outside of the country. That all happened in a relatively short period of time. We saw black people at the end of slavery go from being slaves to being members of the House of Representatives and state legislatures within 3 to 5 years. I understand that in America,
kicked right back out.
Things can turn. I understand that, but then what ended up happening after that? Poor black people in the South with no money and no power ended up not only changing the civil rights movement in America, but they impact the world. Everybody from the Americas all the way to South Africa. Nelson Mandela was inspired for years in jail because of what we did in the United States. So I have to remember that everybody from Frederick Douglass on through kept a level of consistency with their values to help change the country. Now, I'm not saying I'm Frederick Douglass, but everyday Americans like me have to keep the faith so that when it's time for the next step, things can transpire. It didn't seem like we were going to have a Barack Obama after George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, now did it? And yet we did.
Yep, it's well said. History can change in a heartbeat. I keep telling folks that. Lenny McAllister is my guest. He's a black Republican, but apparently not all the way on Team MAGA. We'll continue this conversation. You're invited in if you got a word to say, 800-920-1580. I'm Dominique DePrima for KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
On Thursday evening, November 6th, you're invited to the next KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Town Hall meeting. This time we're convening at Victory Bible Church, 1497 North Hill Avenue in Pasadena. The town hall will once again be broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580 from 4 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, November 6th. But you're invited to join us in person for this urgent and necessary community conversation. The theme for this Altadena Eaton Canyon Fire Town Hall is understanding the Wildfire Recovery Compensation Fund. The primary focus of this gathering is to inform residents about Southern California Edison's newly launched Wildfire Recovery Compensation Program and provide clarity on eligibility and the claims process. There are plenty of questions to be asked, and only KBLA Talk 1580 has the right moderators to ask the tough questions, the right stakeholders and community activists to share their insights, and we have confirmed the participation of corporate executives from Southern California Edison to answer our queries. So be sure to join us at Victory Bible Church in Pasadena, 1497 North Hill Avenue on Thursday, November 6th. The event is free and open to the public, but registration is required at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Light refreshments will be served immediately following the live town hall. This KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Rising Town Hall is brought to you by the Black Freedom Fund.
California, this is your moment. The special election is November 4th, and your vote helps decide your future, your community, and your state. Drop your ballot at a secure drop box. Visit an early vote center or mail it. Your participation powers democracy. Every ballot makes a difference. Tell a friend to do the same. Sign up at where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov to track your ballot. Make your voice count. Don't delay. Vote today. A message from the California Secretary of State.
Time is up. The IRS is in full collection mode for 2025, issuing liens, levies, and garnishments to anyone who has a past tax debt or unfiled tax returns. Don't wait till it's too late. Your paycheck and bank accounts are at risk of being seized. Call now and stop the collection process today. If you're living check to check, no matter how much you're making, you still may qualify for the Fresh Start programs offered by the IRS to reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. It's just a 5-minute call to get your options, and it's free. If you owe back taxes, have years of unfiled tax returns, under audit, have a wage or bank levy, or finally just want to sleep better, business or personal, call the experts at Republic Tax Relief while there's still time. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and tough. This veteran-owned company has the fight you need to take on the IRS. Don't go at it alone. The call is free. Call their hotline number now, 800-260-3330. That's 800-260-3330. Find out if you qualify today, 800-260-3330, or go to republictaxrelief.com.
The conversation continues right now with Dominic DePrima on First Things First.
It does, and my guest is Lenny McAllister, who is also a radio talk host, but as he points out, not the Secretary of Defense. He is a proud Black Republican. So how do you navigate that space? I mean, the critiques that you have, clearly there are areas of convergence with the Trump agenda, I'm sure, as well. And what I'm noticing is that there doesn't seem to be much space for anybody to be nuanced at all. It's like you're either 100% on board with the what I call new Confederate MAGA agenda, or you're out. And so we've seen very little even negotiation or critique of anything coming from inside the party itself.
That's true. For somebody like me, I think that one of the things that I have to constantly do, aside from being in prayer, of course, with all this stuff going on, but it's also really understand my history, understand the issues, understand conservatism, and then be able to apply those lessons to how do you help everyday Americans become better through those principles. Now, that's something that we have supposedly been trying to do for years, but that's something that does not seem to be as high of a priority anymore. So it's even more important for me individually and as a public figure, somebody that does do a lot of speeches, talks to a lot of young people, has a radio show once a week, does other media interviews and has a media presence, if you will, and has one for 20 years. It's more important for me to stay with grace, but also stay rooted in fact, so that people can try to get through the haze of where we are right now. We're a country that for 25 years has gone through a lot of trauma. From 9/11, even the election of 2000 was divisive. Then 9/11, then the Iraqi war, then coming together for just a brief moment under the election of Obama, and then the Great Recession, which was going on during the 2008 election.
Right.
And then more divisiveness, Trayvon Brown, and all the different police interactions with the Black community that went from literally L.A. to Baltimore.
Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, you just put them both together.
We could, Sandra Bland, we could just sit here and do names, unfortunately. Right. Then the 2016 election, then the tariff war, then one impeachment, then COVID, then January 6th, then a second impeachment. So we've had all these things that have disrupted education, economics, and our civics. if you don't cleave to facts, history, and vision, it's very easy to get lost regardless of what side of the political aisle you're on.
Well, and then that means it's going to get easier to get lost, because one of the things that we see happening with this administration is the removal of history from national parks, the removal of history that is deemed uncomfortable from museums, national museums, and it seems like it's going to be more challenging to keep track of actual history. I wonder what you make of the statue of General Albert Pike, who was a Confederate general, also considered by historians to be one of the founders of the Ku Klux Klan post-Civil War, that it's been resurrected in Washington, D.C. It was taken down in 2020 during the protests. Now it has been reinstalled. What do you make of that?
I always make a differentiation between statues such as John de Baptiste du Sable and Christopher Columbus, two people that were pre-America that helped found cities, whether it's Columbus and quote-unquote discovering America, or du Sable, who was actually the African that founded Chicago, the Haitian that founded Chicago. There's a difference between that and American patriots such as Washington and Jefferson and others that owned slaves that had very controversial, if I would dare say, unethical views on Africans. But then there's a third category, because you can keep those statues up and talk about history. When you're keeping up statues of people that committed treason against the United States of America, broke away from the United States of America, committed war against the United States of America, and lost to the point where the country no longer exists, why are we honoring that history? That's where I go to when it comes to Confederate generals and soldiers and the like. They literally created a new country to fight against the United States of America. They lost, and the country was obliterated. So why are we honoring that history? The whole premise of them breaking away was based on slavery. It was a fight that had been fought for basically 100 years prior to the Civil War, and it was even written into the Constitution. There's nothing honorable about that. And the country lost the war to the point of time where they were obliterated from the face of the earth. We do not honor Nazi Germany. Regardless of how big they were and how powerful they were at one point in time, they have been erased from the face of the earth. Ergo, we do not honor them. And the same should be with anything affiliated with the Confederate States of America.
So you make the distinction, and I agree with that too, because that's treason. Why would you, elevate someone who was a traitor to the flag in the name of patriotism? Makes zero sense. But you make the distinction between that and a Columbus, who, although, lots of people don't want statues of Columbus because, in fact, there were already people living here when he discovered it. But because he was not a traitor to the United States, because he came before the modern day republic was established.
From my point of view, Dominique, there would be one person only that you can put a statue up and say that person was flawless. And I would say that as a cradle Catholic, I think the Christians in the audience would know who I'm referring to. After that, there are going to be historical figures that you can look at the statue and somebody somewhere is going to pull some shade out, some dirt out that may be valid, that they're going to try to use to castigate that individual's role in history. There's an argument to be made that a Columbus statue prompts a conversation, that a guy that was here literally hundreds of years before the formation of the United States of America, a person that came here while other countries had the Asiago, the slave trade contract, before it went to Europe, went to England, the Spanish owned it, the Portuguese owned it, the Dutch owned it. So during that period of time, there was no discovery per se of new land. That's part of the myth. You can keep that statue up. It's the same thing with du Sable. I am certain that du Sable did something in his past somewhere when he founded Chicago that made people question exactly what he was doing or how he did it. That's the role of historians to look at primary and secondary sources. But at least those conversations can be had in a different type of way than what you would have towards the Confederate States of America. That is pretty clear-cut in regards to how they stood against America and how they stood against, in particular, African people, and how they dehumanized them and the like.
I mean, I can see your point. I do think, though, that finding something somewhere in someone's past is a little different than, Columbus, who, played a huge role in the genocide, the eventual genocide of First Nations, indigenous people. I think that's a little different than, we dug into his past and we found something terrible. I mean,
I get that, but I would also, I'm not trying to, again, justify what Columbus said. I'm just saying that's a different category. It may be a wide category, Dominic, but it is still a different category than where I would put the CSA in.
Gotcha. I mean, I think we can agree with that, because there's something, to me, there's something unseemly. It's not even unseemly. It seems like it should be illegal to give such adulation to a traitor. That doesn't seem like it should be legal. It's not legal in Germany, right? You can't just...
No, it's not.
You can't go around and put up swastikas. You can only do that here. And, speaking of that, how did you react to the young Republicans, supposedly young, some of them were, I guess you can be up to 40 and still being young Republicans, who were, caught on texts, celebrating Hitler and saying all kinds of racist, misogynist things, then that being excused by the vice president as kids being kids, 40-year-old kids, I might add.
Dominique, there's not often you get a chance to quote yourself in the media, but I'm going to quote myself in 2009. And I was at for those of you out there with that fantastic invention called Google, go look it up, at the Young Republican Convention of 2009, I was one of the older Young Republicans there. I was one of the people trying to help guide the process. There was a very contentious election for the YR chair, and there was a lot of nastiness, including some misogyny, some racism, some sexism, some intimidation of people from, alternative lifestyle communities. And I literally quoted, by the way, it was by John Avlon, who has now gone on to be an author and all kind of bigwig things. But he quoted me as saying, the Republican Party has a tendency to want to take chocolate and wrap cyanide in chocolate and still call it candy. You can't call it candy. Mm. And that's basically what we're seeing with the Republican brand today, the Christian conservative brand today, and what we're seeing out of quote-unquote leadership today, where we're taking literally things that are toxic for this country, wrapping it with patriotism and saying that it's good for us. We're taking cyanide, wrapping it with chocolate, and calling it candy.
And just by way of follow-up, the Republican leaders voted to disband the New York Young Republican group because of that scandal. But I thought it was noteworthy that the vice president defended it. Just that's what young people do. Well, first of all, 40 ain't that young. And second of all, no, it's not. It's not what young people do. I don't think if a young person that I was in charge of raising was doing that, that would be a whole problem. It would not be something I would just say, go ahead. Salute the Nazis.
Young people, Dominic. Young people used to throw toilet paper in trees on what they used to call Devil's Night in a couple of days. But I guarantee you, some of that same population that are saying that kids will be kids, boys will be boys with the text thread, will then sit there and say that these young thugs should be thrown into jail for vandalization on Devil's Night. There's the hypocrisy of duality when it comes to how they want to deal with certain issues. So I don't want DEI, but I want a part-time television host to go from the set to the most powerful position over our military that we can have. I don't want DEI because I don't think that black women have the brain capacity to lead, but I'm going to take others and put them over very powerful structures because they're loyal to me. The hypocrisy of duality is something that, again, when people say, well, why are you still a Republican? Because if you don't have a North Star, particularly in a system that has a two-party system, you either win or you're completely shut out.
Yep.
And we're seeing in 2025 that we can't work that way as communities or as a nation.
Lenny McAllister is my guest. It's a Talking Point Tuesday. More after news, traffic, and sports, only right here.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Governor Kathy Hochul is fast-tracking $30 million to keep New York food pantries stocked as the federal shutdown threatens SNAP benefits for 3 million residents.
It'll help keep food pantries stocked, the little kids' tummies fed. And that's in addition to the $11 million I announced on Friday.
She blames Republicans for the cuts, while Representative Elise Stefanik accuses Hochul of cheering on the shutdown. A new University of Houston poll shows Texans are split on President Trump's immigration policies. 51% approve and 49% disapprove. Support is highest among Republicans and white voters, while most Black and Latino respondents oppose the policies. And the Senate took no vote Monday as the government shutdown hit day 27. Over 700,000 federal workers remain furloughed, and food aid for 40 million Americans could end Saturday. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year and their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
Is this the takeover? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It took 18 innings and 6 hours and 39 minutes, but the Dodgers got it done. And yes, I was up at 11:50 last night when Freddie Freeman provided the dramatic finish. Freeman led off the 18th inning with a solo home run that cleared the center field wall and gave the Dodgers a historic 6-5 win over Toronto in Game 3 of the World Series. The game tied the record for longest World Series game ever played. Freeman hit a walk-off grand slam in Game 1 of last year's World Series against the Yankees. The Dodgers take a 2-1 lead in the best-of-7. Game 4 is tonight at Dodger Stadium at 5 o'clock. Shohei Ohtani, if he has any energy left, is scheduled to be the Dodgers' starting pitcher. Ohtani set 2 World Series records last night, reaching base 9 times and delivering 4 extra base hits, including 2 home runs. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA listeners. This is Dr. Paul Wallace. I want to discuss a type of eczema called atopic dermatitis, which is often misdiagnosed in black children and adults. Atopic dermatitis is an autoimmune disorder that can be accompanied by food allergies, hay fever, and asthma. This rash targets the inner arms, behind the knees, and face, but can go all over the body. It causes excessive dryness and 24/7 itching. It's the scratching and steroid use that leads to permanent scarring. I'm enrolling patients in a new clinical research study focused on better treatment options for atopic dermatitis. Of course, your medication and travel reimbursements are provided. To see if you qualify, visit dermstudies.com or call us at 323-296-0048. That's 323-296-0048. There's nothing worse than itching. Let's take the next step in controlling this problem.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in the National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
Lenny McAllister is my guest on this Talking Point Tuesday. He's an alumni of WVON, which is the Talk of Chicago, 1690 AM, the Black Talk Radio there. We are the only one west of the Mississippi here at KBLA Talk 1580, and happy to have you on, Black-owned that is, happy to have you on, Mr. McCallister. You're a proud Black Republican, and it's got to be tough. You've made that clear. Right now, we are in the middle of a government shutdown, right? Which the Republicans are trying to blame on the Democrats, and the Democrats are blaming on the Republicans. I'm not quite sure how you blame the other party when you control, I should say, all of the chambers of government. But that's what's happening right now. And you have put, I guess, a Christian lens on your conservatism. So how do you process or justify this idea that, well, SNAP benefits are ending as of Saturday because of a government shutdown, and the attitude or the policy seems to be that you have to feel this pain because whatever 10 different reasons we're blaming Democrats for shutting down the government, instead of taking a compassionate, what I would think of a Christian approach, which is find a way to feed people, find a way to make sure people are getting paid for their work, and definitely guarantee people their back pay, not punishing everyday Americans over a political fight.
Well, one, I don't justify it. I think that both sides are wrong on this. I think that the Democrats, I've said this on my own show, if the Democrats are going to take this stand, I think they should have taken it in April, right before all these tariffs really hit. I think they could have done it before the bill was passed in July, which might have short-circuited some of the things that were in that bill, including some of the off-shifting and the tripling of the ICE budget, for example. I think that by acquiescing in April, they put themselves in a position where they weren't going to be able to toe the line now. Now, with that said, Dominic, you bring up a very excellent point. When you control all branches of the government, it's very hard to blame the other side. It's very hard to say we got 5 people that we need over on the other side, and we have literally scores of people over here that can't find a way to compromise. And I brought this up publicly as well. Anytime Marjorie Taylor Greene, as I nickname her MAGA Mama, anytime MAGA Mama ends up being the voice of reason within the Republican Party when it comes to the government shutdown, when it comes to health care benefits, when it comes to SNAP benefits, you know there's a fissure coming within the conservative structure. Anytime MAGA Mama is criticizing the Speaker of the House, and people may say, well, she wants to run for Senate and Donald Trump turned on her, whatever. You could say all that as much as you want. There are plenty of people within the MAGA movement that Donald Trump has run over with the MAGA bus, and they still support Donald Trump. She's not doing that. When you see her take these stances, you know that everyday people, including rural Republicans that are poor, that use SNAP, people want to think that it's just black folks. The majority of people that are on SNAP are white. They're living in West Virginia, which borders my home here in southwestern Pennsylvania. They live in rural eastern Ohio in the central part of Pennsylvania. They're struggling too, and those health care premiums will impact them as well, just like they did years earlier.
Yep.
I think that there is a time that is coming very soon where people will have to get to the table. Now, I will say this, Dominic, it hurts me personally because this is why I did run for Congress years ago, because you don't see a whole lot of people that are trying to broker deals. You see a lot of people on both sides of the aisle pointing fingers back at each other. We don't have that humble servant leadership that we used to see in politics. We need somebody that's less inclined to be popular and more inclined to be historic when it comes to these type of moves. And if we ever can get that back in politics and policy making, maybe we can get some of these things back on track, and we can get back to a point of time where there are co-equal branches of government, where the executive does not tell the judicial and the legislative what to do, that they check and balance each other once again.
Which is how our Constitution was designed. House Speaker Johnson said on Monday there's about 5 billion in contingency funds, but he claims they're not legally available to cover the SNAP benefits. I tend to doubt that.
But it's all. But Dominique, I would also say we now have, on the flip side of that, we have a legal issue in regards to $130 million of private money being given to the military to pay for that. So, I mean, and again, this goes to the problem of 2025 and the myth of Christian conservatism with many, many people within the party. And I'll say the party because I think the party that they're in is not the party that I joined up for. It's not the party of Frederick Douglass. It's not the party of Abraham Lincoln. And it's this. We have a very tangential relationship with truth, justice, law, order. So sometimes it's legal, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the courts know what they're talking about. Sometimes we don't really care what the court says. And the payment of SNAP benefits for hungry people to eat when the winter's coming in most parts of the country, ignoring that, or keeping that, but then ignoring $130 million of private funds that go to military that have been nationalized in a way that's been highly controversial, and I put that in air quotes. Again, that's the hypocrisy of duality that I'm hoping, with my own little small personal example, we can start seeing snowball across the country and grow to where we can get things back on track.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up that $130 million, which was supposed to be an anonymous private donor. The New York Times says it's Timothy Mellon.
Which is out of the Mellon family created Mellon Bank, which is out of southwestern Pennsylvania. So we're very familiar with not only Timothy Mellon, who was on the far right, but also Bonnie Mellon, who supported John Edwards on the far left. And I brought this example up on my radio show.
I wouldn't call that far left. John Edwards, I would call it
not
moderate, more of a liberal, more of a mealy-mouthed corporate liberal.
Bonnie Mellon was far left. But my point was,
I got what you're saying.
I brought up my callers on Sunday. I said, if Bonnie Mellon would have given Barack Obama the same amount of money during the Great Recession under similar circumstances, how would you have felt? And the caller I brought it up to wanted to start talking about laws in the 1790s.
Right.
And that's my point. Again, the duality is just, it's glaring and it has to stop.
And, the legality of that is really, I don't even see how you can justify that. To me, that's illegal. You have a private donor bankrolling military payroll with supposedly anonymously, and they get what in return? So problematic. But to your point, what's good for the goose is definitely not good for the gander. And when we're talking about, today's this administration that we're dealing with right now, and some of the stuff, to your point, is not landing really well with the base. That's what I made of Marjorie Taylor Greene sort of breaking with the shutdown and talking about the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which is she's actually noting that this impacts their core constituency, their base, who are relying on these subsidies, where actually Republican constituents are more likely to have an Obamacare or Affordable Care Act subsidy than a Democratic voter. However, the president said you don't need to vote anymore, and they are acting as if they don't care about their core constituents. To me, that's ominous, because it feels like they have another plan for how to stay in power that doesn't involve voters.
Well, Steve Bannon tried to float that idea earlier this week in regards to his interview about, hey, Donald Trump's going to be the president in 2028. People might as well just get used to that idea. Okay, sure. And I know that the Klan thought they were going to exist forever. I'm certain that...
Well, they still exist.
Well, you get my point. They thought they were going to be in power forever.
Right.
And we can sit there and say that they may still have power in certain pockets of the country. They've had resurgences in the country. And yet Atlanta had a black mayor. I'm sure that they're rolling in their graves over that and other instances of that. So people can have plans. You know the old analogy, man plans and God laughs. That's part of the reason why good people like you and me and your wonderful listening audience, we have to stay involved, we have to stay educated, and we have to stay engaged. because the only way that those things get steamrolled into place is if we sit at home, if we don't vote, if we don't act. And we have to do so in a way that keeps confidence in America, even when America, in instances, lets us down. Because our ancestors, and I'm speaking specifically to us as black people, our ancestors, in many, many instances, they cleaved to American values more than the average American did. And that's the only thing that got us through certain situations, certain scenarios, morally, ethically, and legally and physically, is because we had a belief in God and in what the best of what this country should be, even when the history or the contemporary times told us that we were wrong for having such belief.
Proud Black Republican Lenny McAllister is my guest, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
California, this is your moment. The special election is November 4th, and your vote helps decide your future, your community, and your state. Drop your ballot at a secure drop box. Visit an early vote center or mail it. Your participation powers democracy. Every ballot makes a difference. Tell a friend to do the same. Sign up at where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov to track your ballot. Make your voice count. Don't delay. Vote today. A message from the California Secretary of State.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in the National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome back indeed. It's a Talking Point Tuesday. We try to debunk the usual points, the talking points that seem to be flying around more than ever, or at least figure out where they come from, follow the money, why are we saying them? And we are talking with Lenny McAllister, Senior Fellow at Commonwealth Foundation, and a radio host in his own right. So when you talk about true conservatism, true Christian conservatism, I sometimes wonder if folks are being tricked by this administration. I saw this documentary called Bad Faith and some other things that I've been looking at, which seem to show that even the Steve Bannon interview that you referenced, where he says that, basically Trump is a vessel, that he's doing God's work even if he's not a perfect vessel. I feel like there is a narrative that has allowed or even forced some Christians to go along with this agenda because they think that what they're getting out of it is worth the sacrifice or the amorality or immorality that comes with it.
I think you have a point there. I think that for some, I remember in 2016 when I ran for Congress, the whole point that was brought to me in a lot of instances was, okay, we don't like Trump. We don't like where he comes from. We don't even really think he's a conservative. But if he wins, he'll get us the Supreme Court. And we need the Supreme Court because we need that to overturn Roe v. Wade.
And he did. And they did.
And for some people, that was the payoff. For some people, it was, we're going to have tax reform, which did come at the end of 2017. Now, they didn't count on everything from ignoring of the courts to things such as the tariff wars, which kind of eliminated the whole back and forth of having, more capital in the system.
I mean, and by tax reform, you mean huge tax breaks for the rich, moderate tax breaks for some in the middle class,
and some of it, Dominic. Let's not forget. I know people want to forget this, but a lot of this was started under George W. Bush, 43. It was signed into law and continued under 44, President Obama, and then it was signed and codified even further by 45. So some of these tax breaks are ones that lasted well over a decade, that started past Trump to Obama, and even prior to Obama to Bush 43. But with that point, yes.
I mean, the free ride for the rich, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much everything post-Clinton. But the major tax breaks for the billionaires is, that's Trump's signature tax so-called reform. Yes.
As
extended this year.
I was going back to 17, though. I was going back to 17.
I know. I heard you.
And that economy there. So with that said, there were people that made that bet. Now, you got to understand, too, there was a portion of the country, flyover country, that felt like they were left behind by the Democratic Party. And at the time, they didn't feel embraced by the Republican Party. They came on board with the Tea Party movement and then made their way one side or another, and they selected the Republican Party. And a lot of those folks were traditional Democrats, blue dog Democrats in Western Pennsylvania, in Eastern Ohio, in Union cities, including Philadelphia, that all of a sudden around the collar counties of those major metropolitan areas started voting more purple and then eventually becoming more consistently red. It wasn't that long ago that the American South was solidly blue. That didn't really switch until the Tea Party movement going into 2010 and 2012.
I mean, you could say solidly blue with a massive racist streak, i.e., thus the Southern strategy becomes prevalent for the Republican Party. But here's my question: is it worth it? Was it worth it for you? As a conservative, was it worth it to get the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade? These what I would call amoral policies, i.e., starving the world, i.e., what's happening in Israel.
I understand, Dominic.
The slaughter,
I understand what you're saying.
The genocide in Gaza. Is it worth it?
Well, you said, is it worth it for me? And I actually went on a television show that was on TV One back in the fall of 2024, where I was directly asked, am I voting for Donald Trump? And I said very clearly, I've never voted for Donald Trump. That is still the case, because there are things that you can want from a policy perspective, but I believe in the compromise system that is founded by the Constitution to be able to do that even when I don't have the presidency. I would much rather have constitutional law and order versus having what we've been seeing. And I'll go back to something, and you go back to Christian conservatism. A lot of Christian conservatives bought into this because they wanted electoral victories. But I remember in 2015 where Donald Trump said, I am a Christian, but I never believed I never felt the need to ever ask God for forgiveness. I just figured I'd fix it myself. And that is the antithesis of Christianity, because Christianity is based on the belief that there are certain things you can't fix yourself, which is why the Son of God got on a cross.
Okay.
And if you don't believe that you can ever ask God for forgiveness, not once, for me, that was a disqualifier in 2015. That was before any of this other stuff we've seen. That's been 10 years ago.
All right, we're going to go to speed round because we got some folks with questions for you in the chat on YouTube and folks on the phone. But I have to ask this before time gets away. What about the Epstein files? Should they be released?
Yes.
Let's go to Kwamel calling us from Gardena. Hi, Kwamel.
Hey now, peace. Just to go to what Lenny was talking about earlier about winning electoral victories and about the the MAGA folks and GOP writ large kind of laying down, still supporting him whenever he just trounces on him and steps on him. I really think they feel that their side in power is their identity. They just need this that bad to feel validated as human beings. And it's really strange because, I mean, remember how they were throwing terms around like C-U-C-K, you know, it may not sound right on the air. They're that personified, and they try to project on us. And we should all be able to see right through that and know, like, no, we got to get these folks out of here. And I really do have suspicion about that bunker point that I made earlier about what's really happening with the ballroom. I'll take any comments on that off the air. Thank you for your time.
Lenny McAllister, your reaction to what Kwamel's throwing out there?
I mean, very quickly, I will say yes. A lot of these people felt like they were left behind by society, felt like they were left behind by the left and from the right, and they felt like they found a champion. Anytime you can call yourself a blue-collar billionaire from a guy that grew up in New York City in wealth, it was something that they gravitated to, and they found an identity in it.
Paul wants to know if Reaganomics is a failure, in your opinion.
Reaganomics obviously didn't trickle down as much as it needed to. People forget, though, that the economy in the 90s was not that bad at all, and the fact that we started adding jobs in the mid-'80s. Now, with that said, Reaganomics versus what we saw as far as inner-city policies are two different things, because our inner cities got decimated by some of the moves that they made, including cutting those inner-city programs, which happened in the first 2 years of Reagan in particular, versus what we saw with the middle class rising between probably the late 1980s and on through the 90s, which were, by the way, years that Bill Clinton benefited from.
Carl Tucker wants to know your thoughts on Kamala running for president again. Kamala Harris, the vice president.
She would probably need to be slightly more moderate. I think that she should have created, the number one thing she did wrong last year was she should have created a little bit more distance from President Biden, and she didn't. You have to show that you're your own candidate, and she didn't do that enough, and they were able to tag her with him, and that was enough for independent voters in 7 swing states to go with Trump.
Do you think that, I mean, look, Steve Bannon is saying that Trump's going to be president in 2028. I don't think so, but my theory is based on Burger King and Diet Coke, not anything political. But if he, for some reason, is not the candidate, who would you support? Who represents the way forward for the Republican Party out of this sort of cult madness that we're currently seeing?
Wow, some of the people that left office would be some of those folks. Adam Kinzinger, I would look at a Liz Cheney, but I would also look at other people. I feel like Don Bacon. Don Bacon's out of Nebraska. He's still in office. He's in what's becoming a little bit of a swing state, even though he should still be safe in Nebraska. He pushes back against the administration. I really think this might be like a 2008 moment where the person that's going to end up being the next face of the Republican Party is not on the scene yet. People forget that President Obama was a state senator when he gave that speech in 2004. He wasn't even a U.S. senator yet. He hadn't won that election. And it happened really fast. I wouldn't be shocked if that happens to the Republican Party if it makes that shift.
Yep. I think whoever it is, Dem or Republican, coming from out of nowhere, like seemingly out of nowhere, would be a great advantage at this point. Lenny McAllister, tell us how to keep track of you, and we've got a minute here. How do you want to use it?
You can find me at Newsradio KDKA. Just go to odyssey.com/KDKA. You can find my bio there. Of course, you can also follow me on Instagram. It's very simple. It's at Lenny McAllister. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at LennyMcAllister.com. I hope to have an opportunity to talk to you again, Dominique. You are doing a fantastic job there in Los Angeles, and God bless the wonderful people out there in SoCal.
Yeah, well, hopefully when you come to town, when they let you out of that state, you'll stop by the studio and hang out with us. I always love talking with folks, so I don't have to agree with you, but if you have the ability to have a conversation, and if you come with some facts, that's a great place to start. Lenny McAllister, appreciate the conversation.
God bless you all. Thank you, ma'am.
News, traffic, and sports, and then we're talking with Dr. Kwaku. You know, what do Black men need? What do they want? How can we support the mental health and well-being of brothers right now in America? That's next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Governor Kathy Hochul is fast-tracking $30 million to keep New York food pantries stocked as the federal shutdown threatens SNAP benefits for 3 million residents.
It'll help keep food pantries stocked, the little kids' tummies fed. And that's in addition to the $11 million I announced on Friday.
She blames Republicans for the cuts, while Representative Elise Stefanik accuses Hochul of cheering on the shutdown. A new University of Houston poll shows Texans are split on President Trump's immigration policies. 51% approve and 49% disapprove. Support is highest among Republicans and white voters, while most Black and Latino respondents oppose the policies. And the Senate took no vote Monday as the government shutdown hit day 27. Over 700,000 federal workers remain furloughed, and food aid for 40 million Americans could end Saturday. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Compassion sponsorship means food, health care, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year and their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It took 18 innings and 6 hours and 39 minutes, but the Dodgers got it done. And yes, I was up at 11:50 last night when Freddie Freeman provided the dramatic finish. Freeman led off the 18th inning with a solo home run that cleared the center field wall and gave the Dodgers a historic 6-5 win over Toronto in Game 3 of the World Series. The game tied the record for longest World Series game ever played. Freeman hit a walk-off grand slam in Game 1 of last year's World Series against the Yankees. The Dodgers take a 2-1 lead in the best-of-7. Game 4 is tonight at Dodger Stadium at 5 o'clock. Shohei Ohtani, if he has any energy left, is scheduled to be the Dodgers' starting pitcher. Ohtani set 2 World Series records last night, reaching base 9 times and delivering 4 extra base hits, including 2 home runs. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
You ready? You're invited to the KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair on Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Catch at Audubon Middle School in Leimert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Join us for a day of health, healing, and community connection. There will be health screenings, immunizations, wellness information, a Ketch Charter School recruitment fair, plus music and healthy snacks. And it's all free at the KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair, Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Audubon Middle School in Leimert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Come out and bring the entire family. And if you have not yet checked out our KBLA Health and Wellness Hub, you should at KBLA1580.com. KBLA Talk 1580 thanks Ketch Charter School, Prudential, Eastside, Cedar Sinai, and St. John's Community Health. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that a healthy community is a thriving community.
That's right, baby.